to wake up. Wake up right now. It is happening. America is under attack, but not in the way that you think it is. What we're witnessing isn't just violence. It's a massive psychological operation being run on the American people by the very agencies that are supposed to protect us. And it's working. People are falling for it 24 hours before Congress certifies Trump's presidency. Last night, I received an email from my friend, Colonel Douglas McGregor, friend of the show. You guys know him well. And his words have been ringing in my head ever since. He said, Clayton, when something makes no sense, chances are it does not. And let me tell you, the story we're being fed about these twin terror attacks in New Orleans and Trump Tower in Vegas doesn't make any sense at all.
Chaos in New Orleans. A New Year's celebration ends tragically as a truck drives into a crowd of people on Bourbon Street.
The FBI is sifting through tips to find out why a highly decorated Army soldier blew up a Tesla Cybertruck outside the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas.
So let's unpack what's really going on here. 2 attacks in just a matter of hours. One in New Orleans, one in Las Vegas. The timing, the narratives, the contradictions. It's all too convenient. And all of this is happening just 15 days before Donald Trump takes office. Coincidence? I don't think so. Before diving into these specifics of these so-called terror attacks, it's critical to understand the larger picture here, okay? America's deep state created Al-Qaeda. It created ISIS. This isn't speculation. It's documented fact. The deep state funds, trains, and supports these groups, using them as tools to destabilize regions, execute regime change operations, and justify endless wars. Just look at Al-Qaeda and what they did at the regime change operation carried out by the CIA in Syria last month. This was done before Trump takes office on purpose, people. Wake up. It forces Trump's hands into a war against Iran. And yet, what are we hearing from the conservative media right now? They're conveniently forgetting all of this. Instead, they're parroting the narrative that ISIS has somehow infiltrated the United States to carry out these attacks, that Iran has now snuck man-pad missiles into the United States to shoot down American planes.
But we had 2 solid sources, one south of the border and then one from an element within our own government that confirmed independently of each other that some Iranian-made man-pads to surface-to-air missiles had come across the border.
So we now have Iranian missiles. Who knows how many? And inside the United States.
That is not something you're going to see in a lot of places. Like I said, I didn't even want to talk about it.
That's exactly the story the CIA wants them to tell. And when one of these missiles takes down an American airliner, Americans will be so furious they'll demand that Trump goes to war against Iran. Just look at this NBC headline this morning. A perfect storm, extremism, online, political polarization are increasing risk of attacks, experts say. Experts, yeah. And just 2 days ago, we learned that Jake Sullivan has laid out plans to bomb Iran for President Biden, something he's actively considering before Trump takes office. Good. So we'll have a full-fledged war on our hands that Trump will need to deal with. Great. Let's be clear. This is happening because the CIA is orchestrating it. As former CIA agent Michael Scheuer has explained to me a few weeks ago, this is their strategy. They use what he called dumb Muslims in their operations, people who are expendable, easily manipulated, perfect scapegoats for creating false flags.
They may be finished, Clayton, with shooters, but not with a truck bomb or an aerial weapon of some kind, and they can blame it on anybody. They've got all the gangsters in the country they need, and they can set them up. The FBI specialty is setting up Muslim terrorists.
Now let's get into the bizarre facts surrounding both of these cases. As Colonel McGregor pointed out to me in an email, when something makes no sense, chances are it does not. So let's start with the Tesla truck explosion in Las Vegas. The suspect, an 18-year Special Forces veteran, Matt Livelsberger, with the highest level of security clearance, is an incredibly unlikely candidate for this type of attack. According to sources in the military, he was a top-notch guy who was very close to retirement. He spent 18 years in the Special Forces, not just 2 or 3. People like him don't just wake up one day, make a hard left, carry out a sudden act of violence. He was more than capable of constructing a far more sophisticated explosive device. The crude fireworks and fuel setup in the Tesla truck just doesn't align with his training. My 12-year-old could have done a better job. There's no record of political extremism either. Reports say he was a Trump supporter who loved the United States. We now know he was a reality TV star, next to U.S. Special Forces star Tim Kennedy.
It's a reality show that pits teams of elite soldiers from around the world against each other.
Matt and Tim from the U.S. Army Special Forces.
Okay, so now, I mean, think about it. We've got a guy in a BlackRock commercial as part of the first Trump shooter. We got a guy who was a part of an Azov battalion promo video in Ukraine, was the second attempted Trump shooter. Now, this guy was a reality TV star on a History Channel show? What? And the coup de grace? Livelsberger was shot in the head with a Desert Eagle handgun before the bomb went off. Okay.
We also discovered through the coroner's office that the individual had sustained a gunshot wound to the head prior to the detonation of the vehicle.
Yes, he was dead in the Tesla truck before the bomb was activated. But wait a second. Last night, new video emerges showing Matt Livelsberger in the Tesla truck, his head moving right before the explosion goes off. But the FBI told us he was shot in the head with a .50 caliber handgun that would have blown his entire head off. They are liars, of course. And most importantly, after the bombing, his Signal account was changed. Okay, what the F? None of this adds up. And yet we're being asked to accept it without question? My question is this guy still alive? The body was burned beyond recognition. Beyond that, Livelsberger allegedly sent an email to multiple conservative news outlets where he explained that he witnessed the U.S. military carrying out war crimes in Afghanistan back in 2019, and that these drones all over the U.S. right now are using advanced gravity propulsion technology, basically UFO technology. He told Sam Shumate, who then appeared on the Sean Ryan podcast, that this information would change humanity.
And he said, what I'm going to send you, now these are literally his words, what I'm going to send you is going to change the course of humanity. That was his phrase, change the course of humanity.
Okay, guys, what does the CIA want you to believe right now? And what is actually the truth? Friend of the show, Laura Logan, says this, quote, you don't have to be a genius to spot that this email is filled with media talking points and smacks of a staged cover-up, from civilian casualties, war crimes, to drones on the East Coast. There's something for everyone here. I would bet good money this guy never wrote a single word of this crap. And then there's the New Orleans attack. Within 24 hours of the attack, New York Post reporter in yoga pants was somehow granted access to the alleged killer's apartment. There, she filmed a walk and talk showing off a conveniently staged scene with a Quran, radical manifestos, neatly arranged plans, all right there in the apartment. How does this happen? Who allowed her into the crime scene so quickly? Why wasn't the same courtesy extended in Butler, Pennsylvania, where the FBI cremated Trump's alleged shooter without notifying his family, wiped his apartment totally clean?
Just very unkempt in here. If we go over here, actually, you can see the Department of Justice documents here, the search warrant, and the property that they recorded here.
This isn't journalism, this is theater, orchestrated to sell the American people a prepackaged narrative. The FBI called this reporter 12 hours after they had a secure crime scene and say, hey, come on over here and film yourself. What? Who benefits? It's clear who benefits from regime change wars and terror in the United States. These aren't random events, they're calculated moves in a much larger game. As journalist Whitney Webb explains, this is all part of the plan. You'll be told that digital ID, digital surveillance, money, and Palantir big data pre-crime algorithms are the only way to stop the terror attacks. And it would be disturbing to see how many fall for the ruse, don't give in to the fear, and don't consent. So Whitney sums it up perfectly. These attacks and the fear they create aren't just about control, they're a sales pitch for digital IDs, surveillance, currencies, algorithmic pre-crime systems that promise to keep us safe while robbing us of every last shred of freedom. This chaos, this fear, this destruction of trust in institutions, it's all part of a larger operation to centralize power, take away your buying power, right? They want a centralized